Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Empowering Empathy. This is the show where we explore the power of compassion, personal growth, and professional success.
There you go.
Yeah, tongue-tied and twisted once again. I am here with the one and only Brian Markham. He is our founder and chairman of Golden Technology, and I like to say the expert on all things Brian. How's it going, Brian?
Good. I don't like that, though, because there's nothing about expert and Brian that should be put together in those two words.
Well, you got to at least be the expert on yourself, right?
Yeah, fair enough.
Or at least strive towards it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this episode, we're going to be talking about game changers and, whether it be your personal life or your career or the success of a company, many things come along and change the game. So we thought we would talk about one in particular today. So I'll let Brian kind of tee that up. But Brian, why don't you tell us about this one in particular and how you became exposed to the concept or the system. And
Sure. So I think, like I said before, one of the reasons of doing this is to so I can share with people the things that we did right and we did wrong. And in business, what you'll find is you'll have a growth spurt and then you have a flat line, and then you have a growth spurt and you have a flat line. And hopefully you don't, in those flat lines, you don't go down, which we have in the past. But at the end of the day, those growth spurts, one of them in particular that we'll talk about today is called EOS. It stands for Entrepreneur Operating System. And it was absolutely a game changer for us. And, there's several. And I love this Game Changers title because we can talk of some personal things and some professional things. So this one's going to be a professional thing. I think it's good for anybody that owns a business, starts a business, wants to start a business, is to learn this. So the author of the book that I read is Gino Wickman. Gino is a author and founder of the EOS system. And the way that I heard about it, and
we'll pop that up on screen so everybody can see right there.
Yeah. So I don't know about y'all, but I get, and I'm sure you do, Michael, too, get a lot of people saying, oh, you got to read this book. You got to read that book. You should read this book. And if I had to read every book that I was recommended, I don't think I'd be able to work because I'd be busy reading. But readers are leaders, and so in the second half of my life, I've really built the reading muscle up. I was not a good reader early on, and actually COVID helped because you just sit around and do nothing during COVID. And so
I kind of wax and wane. When I was younger, I was an avid reader, and I kind of got away from it for a long time, and then have, I'd say in the last 5 to 10 years, really kind of dove back in.
It's hard when you have little ones too, so it's hard to find that time to do it.
Yes.
And
that's true.
It's absolutely a muscle that you have to build. People like, I can't read. Well, just start by reading 5 pages a day, because eventually you'll start getting an appetite for it.
15 minutes, whatever.
Yeah. So I originally heard about this system. We were interviewing a law firm to support us in our legal work that we do and back contracts and so forth. And he was sitting in there and he's like, oh, you guys would benefit greatly from this EOS system. And again, the first recommendation of a book came. And then the second time was Mike Rice and I belong to a CEO roundtable where there's about 8 other CEOs in our business. And one of them was talking about how excellent of benefit what EOS was for them. And that was the second kind of punch in the face. And then finally, we've talked about Sharon here. Sharon, our executive admin, she has been an executive admin at other companies, and she was one that had brought EOS into that organization. So by the time I got the third punch in the face, I figured it was time to read the book.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I read the book.
They come in threes.
Traction by Gino Wickman. And I highly recommend that book because it helps set up. It's nothing magical. It's just a process. I refer to it as MBA in a box. And so went online to the EOS system, and Michael, you've gotten to get a chance to get into our EOS sessions in our leadership team. But filled out the old questionnaire online. Of course, got a phone call right away, And I said, hey, I want to find someone that has our industry experience that could be a facilitator of implementing the EOS system into our organization. And the one huge piece of advice is don't try to implement this thing by yourself. Don't self-implement. It will fail.
Yeah.
You have to use it. And so
need a guide.
We need a guide.
A coach.
And we found a good one, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, we were talking about this earlier, but I would say that in addition to the system itself, Derek has probably made as big of an impact as the system has.
Yes. Derek Patak out of Cleveland, Ohio. Go Tribe. Oh, actually, go, what are they called now?
The Guardians.
Still. The Go Guardians. Yeah. Another podcast.
We'll get into that later.
Anywho, yes. He came recommended through their website, and then I also checked his references in our industry through Tech Serve Alliance. And you're right, the guy was the real deal.
Absolutely.
To keep my ADHD brain in track in an all-day meetings is hard to do, and he did that with a room full of 7-8 of us, which was really powerful.
Yeah.
So what is EOS? I think it's important for us to kind of lay that out a little bit. EOS stands for Entrepreneur Operating System, and it consists of rhythms of meetings and goal setting and vision and mission setting that you have to do on a regular basis, and it keeps you on track on a weekly basis. So the first session is a 2-day offsite session. And it was grueling and it was tiring. I remember we had to bake out our vision statement and our mission statement a little bit better.
Yep.
I've always been describing that vision is something that's farther down the road. It's kind of like your destination, if you will.
Where do you see yourself in the company going?
10 years from now, 5 years from now. And the mission is like, what do you have right in front of you? And it's the battle and the war. So mission is now, vision is where we want to end up. So we built that out. That was part of the Vision Traction Organizer. If you remember, you and I worked on that pretty heavily.
Yeah.
Our differentiators. Our uniques. Our proven process.
Yep.
And our guarantee. And so we built
target
markets. Yeah. So you have to build all those out, and that takes some time. And then you take, and day 2, if I'm not mistaken, you have to build out kind of this 10-year dream.
Right.
Like in 10 years, what do we want Golden Technology to look like?
Yep.
And we can talk about that one a different time, but our dream in 10 years is to be, we're not going to be worried as much about the P&L and the balance sheet, but we want to be a $100 million company, $10 million EBITDA, and to be able to donate at least $8 to $10 million of our money at that time a year to the overlooked and underserved through Golden Community.
Right.
And so this organization is a platform. It's not a business. It's in my eyes, being a faith-based guy, it's kind of a ministry, if you will. And it's a goal for us. So then you take that 10-year and you define it. And the reality is 10-year goals are kind of smoke and mirrors. Like
a little bit.
When I was sitting in that room doing it, I was looking around at y'all, and like 2/3 of you hadn't been with me 3 years ago prior to that. Right. So things change, but you hold on to that loosely, and you build from the 10-year, you build a 3-year strategy.
Right.
And that 3 years, more concrete, it's more what you want to do in 3 years. And you solidify that, and that's all the financials. That's what does the company look like on all aspects. And then finally you break it down into you build a 1-year plan.
Yep.
Exactly in 1 year. And you get more at the micro level with that kind of stuff. You talk about your financials, your gross margin, how many billable consultants you have, but you also talk about Golden Community, how much money we're donating, what we're doing with that money. And we do EOS for Golden Community, and we do it for Golden Technology.
Right.
So you walk away with that, and then what comes up of it are quarterly goals. EOS calls those rocks.
Yeah.
So you have a group of company rocks. Usually, what does he say, Derek? 3 to 7, 4 to 7, something like that. But he literally likes 3 or 4.
Right.
Not a whole lot of rocks. You don't set a lot of goals. You only do like 4.
The idea there is big picture focus.
Right. So then each person in the leadership team should set 3 or 4. So you have the company rocks, and then you have your individual rocks.
Yep.
You remember? I don't remember what my first 4 rocks were for that Q1. Do you remember any of yours?
Oh, it's been like 2 years.
I know. Anyhow, I think we
don't.
did pretty good. The goal is to hit at least 80% of those goals by the end of the quarter.
Yeah.
But what happens from building those rocks is you end up with loads of issues.
Of course.
You know, and those issues can range from interdepartmental to inside one department, and you just make this huge laundry list of issues. What are the issues that it's going to get in our way of getting to our goals, our one-year goal, right? So you walk away with quarterly rocks. The next quarter, you walk a yearly, 3-year, 10-year, and a whole lot of issues to deal with. Mm-hmm. And then the leadership team then takes and has weekly meetings. What's our weekly meeting called?
L10.
L10 for level up to level 10.
Yep.
And so the L10s have a cadence, and these cadences are very important. I think this is where the secret sauce is, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The first one is kind of a warm-up. We do a segue where we talk about one thing that happened to us personally and professionally that week that made us feel good.
Yeah.
So we had our L10 yesterday. What was your personal and professional best for the week? Do you remember?
My personal best was just having a great weekend, mostly hanging out with the kids. Baseball season has just ended, so it's back, starting up once again.
Yeah.
You know,
and you got to play in your band right in front of your boys, right?
Yep. We had the first we haven't played a lot of gigs in town in like 4 or 5 years, so it was cool to have them there in the afternoon and give them a chance to, see us, not just see us perform, but hang out and be backstage and on stage and, just having fun. So,
sure.
They had a lot of fun doing that. So,
yep.
Yeah.
If you don't know, Mike is a real rock star. His kids just don't think he's a rock star. He actually is a rock star.
Yeah, but I mean, functionally, it's like going, as a kid to your dad's softball game. It's one thing to go to a game. It's another thing to go and watch your dad play and get to hang out in the dugout, while they're doing it.
Exactly.
Those are memories that I still have from a kid, hanging out with my dad. So it's cool to have, that with them. So.
You are a good man and plenty of a great man that your boys will definitely be looking up to you for years, my friend. I can promise you that.
I appreciate it.
So we go through the segue, and then we get into looking at, I think our next step is to looking at our data, right?
Yeah.
And our data.
Measurables.
Every week you got to have 5, 7, 8 measurables. What are you measuring on a weekly basis? And for us in our industry, it's how many open positions we got from our clients, our sales team, how many meetings they had, recruiters, how many submissions of candidates did they have to a position, interviews, how many candidates did our clients talk to, how many offers and how many acceptances. And we look at on a weekly basis. Yep. And we look at by geographic region and so forth. So we do our measurables on a weekly basis. That takes 5 minutes. We don't talk about this stuff, really. We're not supposed to, at least. During that time,
just report them.
Report them, and if there's an issue, we save it for the issues session of the period of the meeting. Meeting's an hour and a half long, 90 minutes. Then we get into our rock review. I believe our rocks are. We look at the company rocks, and then we look at each person's individual rocks. And all we want to do is say we are on track, off track, or done. And we go around and we have to look each other in the face and we say, are you on track? Are you off track? Are you done with your rock? And you have to be honest. That's the other cool thing is the chemistry of the team really gels together and adheres, right? Yeah. And so then after that, we go to our to-dos. And that's another 5-minute section. And each of us have a set of to-dos from the previous L10. Right. And we will say, okay, is your to-do done? Not done? And we just go through that list, and we have to hold each other accountable on those.
So for those out there watching, what's the difference between a rock and a to-do?
A rock is a long 3-month to-do. So a to-do is something that you
much like a goal.
A goal, right.
A project.
A quarterly to-do is a rock, so it's a goal that you want to do. Now, once you talk about an issue, then from that will come to-dos. Right. And to-dos are usually a 1, maybe 2 week stretch that you have to get that to-do done.
Right.
It's a smaller rock, if you will.
Yeah.
So once we get done with the to-dos, we got the rocks done. We went through the data, the segue. Then we spend 60 minutes in issues.
Yep.
And it's the acronym is IDS. Sometimes I think it feels like IBS.
You remember what IDS stands for?
Yes, it stands for identify, discuss, and solve.
Boom.
Yes.
On it.
Yes. So, and these issues are for real. Like we don't get each other's grill, but we do we're honest with each other, right?
Open, honest, transparent, direct.
Yep.
Yeah.
And do you remember the name? What was the name of the book that we read along with this to kind of get to that level of transparency? The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team.
Yep.
That was another great book. That book really taught us that you have to have trust
Yep.
in your team. So identify. You go around the room and you kind of vote which issues do you want to discuss first. You got 60 minutes. And sometimes if you're like this, you got more issues than you can get through in a 60-minute period.
At least early on.
Yeah, we're getting better, aren't we?
Yeah, I think we're getting to a point where things are a little smoother.
Sure.
Not so many unresolved things just floating out there. Not as many fires.
Right.
And a process for everything. So.
Yeah, and it is. Some of them you just realize, okay, I don't need to discuss this with the whole leadership team. This is a department level conversation.
Sure.
And you get better at knowing when that is and when that isn't.
Yeah.
And so when you identify the issue, so someone has like a clarifying statement, usually the person that typed in the to-do during the week, and they clarify what the issue is. Discuss so people, well, help me understand what that issue is exactly. And you identify it. Then you discuss the issue, and you're like, okay, so you could do the feel, felt, found, but you try to lead with empathy, empowering empathy. You try to hear if they have an issue, you're asking yourself, where is that coming from? I put myself in that person's shoes. And then when you solve it, you usually solve it with 1, 2, or 3 future to-dos. So you can right-click. We use this little software, 90.io. It's great.
Yep.
Shout out to Derek Patak and 90.io.
Yeah.
And you can right-click on it, make a to-do, and then the people that are assigned that to-do have to get that done, hopefully by the next L10 meeting.
Yeah, and that 90.io piece of software, for those of you watching, is basically like a CRM for the system.
Right, exactly.
It's built to match up.
Yep. Oh, and I did forget one section, the headlines, remember? So we do take 5 minutes, and we talk about headlines, good and bad things that happened to the company that week.
Yes.
Usually, hopefully good, but we do talk about if there's a bad thing, if someone had to leave the company or, we lost a deal. But usually it's about something as we're growing.
Sure.
So if you get in this rhythm, and you got to do those L10s every single week, and it's just critical. Like anything else you put in business. If anybody's listening that is a small business owner, a business owner, or a large business owner, or even a manager in corporate America, you can't just come in and say, we're going to do this, and then not have follow through. You have to be 100% all in with EOS. And
consistency.
We spent big money on Derek and trying to bring him in and build the implementation. But I can tell you that first 2 quarters, 3 quarters that we through that process, I don't know. I'll put you on the spot a little bit, Michael. You were here, I think, a little bit before we had EOS in, and then you had the biggest. You've been here obviously for a couple years, 3 years since EOS. What have you felt been the biggest change for our organization with EOS?
I think the consistency is a huge part of it. There's basically from the top down a way that the system has forced us to establish, SOPs, standard operating procedures, whether it be leadership, sales, recruiting, operations. There is a mechanism for regularly addressing long-term goals, short-term tasks, fixing issues, and communicating and getting face time in the right way. Any company struggles at times with over scheduling meetings.
Too many meetings, yes.
This also not only does it give a mechanism for scheduling the right recurring meetings, but also running those meetings in a way that does not waste a lot of time.
Right.
And even for me, I'd say the biggest impact for me personally from the marketing side of things is very early on forcing us to really flesh out, discuss, identify who it is that we are, what it is that we're all about, what are the things that we're really focused on, and how do we convey that to the rest of the world. And frankly, had I been forced kind of into this system 2 years earlier, I feel like we would have been doing some of these things much earlier in terms of telling our story and telling it to the right people and to the right audience.
Right.
So those are the biggest things for me.
It was, and you're absolutely right. There's accountability, communication, consistency, everything that you need in a business. And so, I mean, if you have any interest in learning more about it, feel free to leave comments in there. We'll have someone reach out to you. We can connect you to the right people in EOS. And definitely, if you have an interest, grab that book. What's cool is then after we did it for a quarter or two, then we pushed down to at the department level. So the VP of Michael's got
there's the book there again.
Oh yeah. So our recruiting team, there's 40 people on our recruiting team now. So they have delivery leads, and they have a VP of delivery, Rishi. So Rishi's on the leadership team, but then he went down to his department and did his own quarterly rocks, and he has his own L10 meetings. The sales team has their own L10 meetings. The operations has their own L10 meetings. Right. So if you bake it down throughout the organization, it really becomes a game changer. And just to give you an example, the year that we put it in, we finished the year right around $10 million in revenue, with probably 65 consultants billing. The first full year, 2022, that we had EOS rocking, we ended the year at $16.5, $17 million, and 95 billable consultants. 60% growth. So that, my friend, is a game changer.
We dropped the mic here, but they're connected to these boom arms, and it just wouldn't work right.
But I'm not giving Derek all the credit. Derek, you did good, but I also hired some amazing people.
Yes.
So there you go. That's EOS. That was one of our business game changers. Probably boring for some of you folks that are listening to us around more on the personal side. We'll get to a game changer personal next one, maybe two down. Yeah. But there you go. That's what EOS is all about.
Absolutely. EOS, the game changer for golden technology and for many others. So check that book out again. I'll put it up here one more time. If you're a little bit curious or not sure that you want to dive right into the system, just check out the book. See if it's for you or for your company. We highly recommend it, obviously. We've been talking about it for 25 minutes and put it up on screen several times. But
it's also on
we are not paid to do that. We are not
Derek?
Affiliates. We don't get a referral fee.
Yeah.
I don't think anyway. Maybe we should negotiate that.
Ahead of time, maybe?
Yeah, whatever. But, yeah, check it out. So,
all right.
What else? You got anything else on this topic before we get on out of here?
No, just stay steady, and keep working it.
Awesome. All right, y'all. Well, we're going to let you go. That's been Empowering Empathy for the day. Check us out next week. Same time, same channel. See you then.
That's all I got to say about that.
Indeed.